In high school, I was involved in this really cool program called First Robotics Competition. It was this robotics program where we met after school and developed robots using this really cool, not often seen technologies, and then we'd travel to different parts of the country to compete against other robotics teams. And it was a ton of fun, and I learned a bunch about STEM and a really cool technology, and a lot of that came from the organization's founder, which was Dean Caiman. This guy is an inventor extraordinaire. He won the National Medal of Technology in the 90s. He's founded his own company called Deca. He's got this wacky, super charismatic vibe. He owns his own private island that he has like his fake country on. He's just a pretty cool guy, and he's invented tons of super important things like the portable insulin pump, the auto syringe for that, the dialysis machine, which his company pioneered developing a lot of technologies of to make that more usable and smaller in size. The stent, the type of thing that goes in arteries and valves in different parts of the bodies in surgery to try to keep things open. The Ibot Wheelchair, which was this big mobility device for disabled people that had way more power and was self-powered, and a really innovative wheelchair for design. And his most well-known invention came from that, the Segway. And so these inventions, there's also the Luke Robotic Arm, which I have pictured here. It's a fully controllable prosthetic that he's made. These inventions have become mainstays in modern society. They've been tremendously impactful. Not all of them have had the same impact as others might have, but still. When Dean said at TEDMed 2010 that he's going to introduce his biggest invention yet, and he's going to use it to try to solve the world's water crisis, people listened. He hasn't directly been involved in this field before, but he's got quite a resume on him that can really show that whatever this device is, it really could be the future for water in many parts of the world. And this device was called the Slingshot, which he said, as the slingshot killed the Goliath, this slingshot will kill the Goliath that is the water crisis. You might have heard of the Slingshot before. The Slingshot was originally made in partnership with the Coke Freestyle, the Coca-Cola product distribution thing that you see at a lot of restaurants now. Dean agreed to license the Coke Freestyle to Coca-Cola for free if they would fund and distribute the first wave of Slingshot machines as they were sent around the world. So how does this super cool device work? It uses a Stirling engine, which is awesome, really obscure engine type that was developed all the way back in the 1800s, where it heats up to 1,000 liters of water per day and evaporates it into steam. This leaves all sorts of contaminants, residue, salt water, sewage, anything can go into this thing, and it gets trapped behind. The steam comes out, it gets compressed back down into environment or room temperature water that's completely drinkable and medically usable. It uses only a kilowatt of power, which is unbelievably efficient compared to industrial grade water machines that use to power most sewage treatment here in the United States. It can operate up to 5 years using 1,000 liters of water per day with no maintenance at all. Doesn't require an engineer to use it, doesn't require a ton of setup. You put the water in, you press go, it just works. So this is a pretty groundbreaking device right here. It should be incredibly impactful. Dean set up, when he was releasing this in 2010, to start making a documentary called Slingshot all about this, about how it was going to change the world and that this was his biggest invention that he was so proud of, was super excited to get distributed around the world, and then some problems started to happen. This device costs over $100,000 to produce, and it's really complicated to assemble because of that Stirling engine I talked about. This is kind of the appeal of the device, that it uses a Stirling engine, it is portable, it is on site, and Dean thought as more were made, and they were made in mass, the price would go down. That unfortunately didn't really happen. And at 2010, this was basically the only on-site, movable, simple water purification thing. But now things like the Tata Swatch and Life Straw have come out, and while they don't do medical grade water, they do in general outperform the amount of water that can be purified per day. And there's just been kind of a general lack of interest after the Coca-Cola partnership. There's still only a couple hundred of these devices in the world. There's some in Ghana, there's some in the Caribbean. There was a rollout to India a few years ago. And when Dean talked about this at the World Championship of Robotics in 2016, he was really excited about it then, because that was right when the documentary was coming out, and I was super excited to get into the research on this project and see more behind what was going on with this. And it's unfortunate to hear that this is still just kind of a future technology, and that right now we're just not at a point where stuff like this can be completely readily distributable. And while Dean said the dream isn't dead on this, right now this is definitely going to be a few years into the future before the Slingshot is the way that many people around the world are regularly getting their water.